Safe. Now, I've always had a weird time with the Protectobots. I never thought they were especially cool as characters or as toys. My earliest memory of them as a kid was checking out the catalogue and being put off the whole set by how shit Groove looked. Even coming back to Transformers as an adult, I was never super interested, because in a world where Bruticus and Predaking were up for grabs, Defensor always seemed so lame and goody two-shoes. I mean, a giant robot whose job is not only to not stomp on things, but to prevent things from being stomped on. I'm good. At least Superion had a cool name. So for basically the whole time I've been doing YouTube, my relationship with this careful crew has always been filtered through knockoffs. From my earliest videos through multiple beatdowns, they were always present but never the focus. Firstly because it felt wrong to review a fake set like it was real, but also because it was always funnier to talk about how they were knockoffs. It's easy not to appreciate the grounded elegance of this beautiful special team when you're preoccupied with pointing out how they're too big or too small or the wrong colour, or covered in amusing malapropisms and misspellings like emergergy or ambulance or the Reich Fuhr deform.
The movability share. It can turn 90.
Even that gift set we checked out in the latest Toy Thew video turned out to be a bootleg. How's it going, Defensor? But no more, baby! This year I finally took the initiative, gathered up the stragglers I'd acquired along the way, headed to TF Nation and scraped together a full set of Protectobals. And believe me when I say I cut every corner I possibly could. These lads are not in great shape. Weapons missing, colours all sun-bleached, labels faded and scuffed, but they're here, goddammit, and they deserve some praise. Behold, the scrattiest Protectobots! So Hotspot and his bot squad popped off in 1986 as an earthbound Normo crew, keeping it real in the real world while the movie was busy with all futurist foolishness and mutant jets and authoritarian squid monsters. And with older eyes, they make sense now. Knowing they were designed for Diaclone before the buyout reframes them somewhat, puts them more in line with those cozy retro commercials, all model cities and blue skies and kids with bowl cuts acting like they're tough. They make such a wholesome sight, all reassuring reds and whites against the calming backdrop of Hotspot's giant sky blue ass. Let's dive right in with the Spot Boss anyway, may as well. Big Pol Spot here is a mighty clunksome customer, just a simple stand-up slab of a sucker, slathered in sumptuously gobbly mecha greeblies and visibly made out of a fire engine that's been snapped around like a Rubik's Cube. Like those arms are blatantly just the rest of the truck inelegantly folded aside with hideous non-fingers bursting out the front. Can't believe those are his real hands. Check the black tangle of the head clump. Definitely biting Grimlock style with the deep red eyes and mouth plate. It was the fashion. So as we touched on, I got Hotspot this summer from Toy Thew for 15 quid, which is appropriate for a geezer in this kind of shape. Time has not been kind to his colour job, turning it from the original Sky Shade to a sicklier cyan. But we got the metal chest plate for authenticity, and I'm living for these stickers. Check the abundance of hazard stripes. Bro takes safety seriously. What do these buttons do, or readouts mean? Are those reel-to-reel tapes? Do you care? Didn't think so. Just relish the retro. Transformation takes about 9 blissful seconds. The arms put in minimal work to form the cab, they just kind of reach, and the springy retractable head is adorable. But having not really paid attention to it before, it's jarring how much it is just Onslaught plus Inferno. Like, that's fully Inferno's ladder slash head on a stick, and I think his thighs are the same components as Onslaught's. Kinda makes Onslaught look a mug, honestly. What's that? Your shit just comes off. Embarrassing. But the fire truck mode is charming as hell, man. It's such a beautiful thing, a straightforwardly satisfying oblong of charisma with all the fire truck fun built in that any kid could want. Extended ladder, sculpted hoses, it's, in the parlance of our times, straight fire. Still weird to me though that it's a blue fire engine. Like, aren't those red normally everywhere? But I have always loved the colour. It's so distinctive and it screams Autobot middle manager. He's here to help and be respected. There's a base mode in there somewhere, can't be asked for that. So let's strut on over to Streetwise, a strange but striking cop car comrade who somehow looks cool even in spite of the friggin' shape of him. Look at that graceless stance and foldy up tum. How is he still smooth? Check his tiny Bart Simpson spike head there with the baby blues radiating loveliness. Dig his visible metal framework there and the combiner boner just flopping out the back. And he's the only one of the smaller dudes whose gun I have. I don't know why I've got it. I only bought him in August, but his gun's been floating around the house for years. Birdbrain's been looking after it. Thanks, bud. transformation's oddly hilarious. You just snap it in half twice and the chunks are like, we're a boy now! Barely, mate. But this is a pretty nice patrol wagon. Such a neat little humpmobile, pointing keenly forward like an arrowhead with the wheels of a Hot Wheels. Oof, those stickers, good god, man. I love the contrast of the dark windows and red wee-woos against the sort of off-white tan shade that he either is or ended up as. It's a total sweetheart of a thing. A hefty half-metal handful that shouldn't be good, but is. Unlike Groove, who shouldn't be good and is not. There's so much to talk about here, and almost none of it's complimentary. To be fair, his stickers are history. That's Time's fault, not his. But look at what we're working with. He's got his whole back tire poking out his dick hole. He's stood on these pathetic little seat feet looking like floppy bed socks. I suppose congrats on having 2 feet. The arms are nice and shiny, but oddly shaped and weirdly executed. And I mean, the tiny combiney pinhead never looks good on anyone, least of all the huskier boys. But there's absolutely no need for a motorcycle to be almost as broad-bodied as friggin' Swindle. Yeah, a motorbike on a full-size combiner team. To be fair, he does make a pretty solid police cruiser. I think this was, if not the first, then one of the first Transformer motorcycles, so Groove had a lot to prove. And in the end, it really only works as a motorcycle.
That's a nice motorcycle. Alright.
I think pointing out scale discrepancies is like the first thought anybody has when considering combiners as not a 5-year-old. And Groove Too Small is the classic example. It is wild to have this soppy scooter form a super limb on even footing with a helicopter, or even a car. Making Groove make sense was the reason the Combiner Wars Protectobots ended up being a 7-man team, because they sensibly reassigned him as the chest plate, drafted in a replacement limb, and then included him anyway. 2 of you plus a substitute. Way to make it all about you. Such a flaky little chancer in a sea of flaky little chancers. Onwards and upwards then to First Aid, the adorable mini ambulance man who's more rescue than Ratchet. Ooh, that was an awkward cut. Even at a glance, he's obviously an ambulance that became a robot by exploding. The humongoid back flap and ropey arms don't exactly have the air of a finished solution, but I guess this was the design philosophy that gave us the aerial bots, so this firsty bitch handles it with relative grace. Such a charmer, too. He packs so much pizzazz into that microscopic noodle, and his strong red bod and smooth white surfaces give him a comforting and trustworthy energy. The Doctor is in. Transforming Sweet FA definitely feels like tidying up. Everything sort of sinks back into place, and that front flap is some primo satisfying fidget toy shit. Man, I just love this alt mode. It's one of the cleanest, purest vehicle modes around. A helpful little hamster with tidy lines and delicious breezy windows. It's like, are you an ambulance? Yes, I am. Ambulance. Anyway, clear the drop zone for Blades! Once again looking ratty as frig with all his stickers gone. It was like that when I got here. What a stunner this kid is. Working the forgivably ragtag look as a righteous column of red with a smashed helicopter dripping off him. All clumsy overloaded arms and that V of rotors flipping you off from behind. Punctuated by that soft blue face like an interrobang. He's so innocuous and inviting in hand. And I love that they seized the connotations of a name like Blades and wrote him as a rowdy street brawler, itching to cut a bitch with those arm-mounted skis the second he gets off duty. Born to slice, forced to nice. Gotta say, that's a mighty First Aid coded transformation, showing off more or less the same side panel stowage and flip over frontage, plus a tasty tail split that always makes me smile. See? And the copter mode's a hella charming chopper chum. I'm saying charming a lot. That's what's up. Look at this darling little dolphin with its big boopable nose and token trundlers. Rotors are spinny as frig until they're not. And I love that he doesn't even share a single part with his fellow copter Vortex. That's actually something I really enjoy about the scramble scene. Each and every one of them is a unique toy. I mean, they did 2 separate helicopters completely independently with 0 shortcuts. Streetwise is just a car. They could have easily drafted in one of the Stunticons with a light bar, but they didn't. However weird and, real talk, borderline half-baked the results ended up, they put in the time. Nothing but respect. Anyway, let's get large. Man, that Scramble City combination always hits. It's so nice to be able to make a combiner in under a minute. It's still very much the hotspot show, seeing as he's the only one who really does anything. Assuming a boxy torso mode, smashing out his second head and donning not one, but 3 armor plates, while the rest of them just shift 1 or 2 bits and bump an extremity on. Kinda miss when the main audience for these was 6-year-olds. And behold my scrungly-ass Defensor in all his faded, creaky glory, bearing only the most bare bones of essentials and pulling it off like a champ. And before you start, I don't care if this is the official, recognized default combination, configuration, or whatever. All of them can be anything, that's the point. My house, my shit, my video, my rules. Thanks for watching. God, ain't he a beaut? Ain't he an absolute block of a thing? A calm, conscientious, immovable object of a man. No pretense, minimal flair, simply standing strong and stoic, securing the bag with safety on his mind and 2 huge cannons that shoot help. So as a toy, Defensor's honestly pretty basic. Just a big old brick of cheese proudly made up of entirely vehicles. Very little posing on the go, but it looks rad, as his G1s want. We're operating purely on vibes. Grooves even. Gotta shout out Groove down there. He actually makes a really solid leg, bringing a bit of zazz to the show with his dope motorbike windscreen. Blades is maybe struggling a bit, with all rotors flopping off him like one sleeve of a tassel jacket. And the other 2 are also here, obediently providing somewhere to put the brutally simplistic fists, simphistic, and the little islands of industrial flooring that we're to call feet. But it's definitely the bod that rocks the shop, same. Just a pure power cube, crushing it in solid black armor, hard red guts ablaze with courage, capped off with the robo face, looking impressive yet approachable, and the ladder dangling off the bracket like a ponytail. Man, it's such a trip to have one of these that's not a bootleg and allow myself to enjoy it. I still don't know if it's an especially cool combiner, but it looks like what it is. He looks like backup. A fierce amalgamated first responder made glorious living metal and 100% living up to his name, which I've honestly never been sure about. Defensor. Shouldn't it be Defendor? Like, what does Devastator do? He devastates. What does Menacor do? He menaces. What does Defensor do? Defenses. Defendor does sound super cheesy though, like a rebranded 70s anime. Anyway, I always assumed as a kid that the appeal of combiners was that they're massive, but I don't know if they ever really were. Like, all the 80s kids are 40 now, and big combiners have gotten crazy big, but Defensor is particularly diddy and barely scrapes Ultra Magnus's shoulder. For me, it's more about the chintzy allure of his dashingly dated beat boop swagger, and of course, the insuppressible joy of gradually assembling something, even if it takes 40 years. So yes, my lovelies, the Protectobots are a tremendous little set, and embracing them now, at this point in my life, in this way, feels right, and really personal. Like, I lived my whole youth on secondhand shit, buying cheap used CDs and old-ass video games a year or 4 behind the curve, never keeping up with the zeitgeist, but enjoying things on my own terms. I'm the kid who bought a Sega Mega Drive in 1997, and Defensor feels like the logical extreme of that. Here is a toy I was roughly aware of when I was 3 that I've gradually gathered up as slowly and scrattily as I fancied. This side of the hobby is such a haven from the constant new release hype churn, and the fact that he's beautiful is just the seasoning on a very chompable slow-cooked stew. Anyway, cheers for coming with me on this. Big thanks to Ryan Pokeprime for gifting me 3 of these lads out of the blue years and years ago. And until next time, stay safe, bitches. And that front flap is some oh, there's my booty. Punctuated by that soft blue face. Oh, stop farting. Fucking hell. Looking impressive yet approach. God, my booty's a fucking bitch today. Oh boy, a personal collecting story review. We all love those, right? I don't know if I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, thanks for watching. Mega thanks as always to all the patrons and channel members climbing the ladder to my left/right. And a big random bedroom shout out to Chris Ranger. Mighty Morphing Chris Ranger. See ya!
Be sure to subscribe for more Thew's awesome Transformers reviews. Robocentric vocabulgasm.